Chosen one, you're more intelligent than they thought, and the version of you they carefully constructed is currently being dismantled by the truth. While they were comfortable in their confidence, assuming you were merely the quiet one who didn't fit their mold, you were actually acting as the most dangerous mind in the environment, absorbing, cataloging, and waiting in deliberate silence. This is your activation, proving that the quietest current is the most powerful, and your brilliant foresight has finally outpaced their ability to even understand the game you are playing. Every powerful arc has a villain, and yours is not a person, it is an assumption. The assumption works like this. Intelligence announces itself. It is loud, it is fast, it fills every available silence with proof. The sharp person is the one with the quick answer, the polished vocabulary, and the ability to perform brilliance on command. Intelligence, in their framework, is a performance, and if you are not performing, you must not have anything worth performing. This belief was everywhere you looked. It shaped how you were graded, how you were evaluated, and how social hierarchies organized themselves around you. The person who spoke first got the credit. The person who projected the most confidence collected the most trust. The person who moved fastest through a problem was declared the winner, regardless of whether the fast answer was the right one. So when you showed up, observing instead of announcing, processing instead of performing, you did not match the filter they were running. And anything that does not match that filter, in a world built on performance, gets treated as evidence of limitation. They were making a catastrophic error in judgment. They simply did not know it yet. Here is what was actually happening. You were like deep water that does not disturb its own surface. The stillness was not emptiness, it was depth. And the instruments they were using had never been calibrated for depth, only for speed, volume, and surface activity. You were not performing because performance was never the point for you. You already understood, at the level of instinct, that fast answers are almost never the truest ones. You already knew that most of the noise in any environment is not worth adding to. You were not filling every silence because your intelligence was doing something far more valuable than making an impression. You were studying everything around you, and when you study something long enough, you stop just observing it. You begin understanding it completely, its mechanics, its motivations, its blind spots. Once you understand something completely, it loses its power to surprise you, control you, or define you. The people who underestimated you thought they were reading the situation accurately. You had already finished reading them. Here is where your arc gets genuinely powerful. Most people, when they encounter dismissal, take one of two paths. They fight back, loudly, emotionally, spending enormous energy trying to prove the crowd wrong, or they absorb the dismissal, let it settle into their self-concept, and begin performing the role that was assigned to them. Both paths hand the power to someone else. You did neither. You went quiet, and in the quiet, you started collecting. Every manipulation, every performance, every carefully constructed half-truth designed to shape your perception, you logged it, not always as a conscious decision. It was simply the natural output of a mind that cannot stop at the surface. Your intelligence reaches for what is underneath automatically, the way water always finds the crack in whatever surface it touches. What you found underneath was consistently revealing. The person performing the most confidence was protecting the most fragile sense of self. The loudest voice in any conversation had thought the least about the subject. The person most committed to keeping you small understood, at some uncomfortable level, that if you were fully visible, the comparison would not favor them. The most elaborate manipulation in your vicinity was never being run from a position of genuine power. It was being run from a position of fear. You saw all of this. You continued watching. And here is the pivot that changes everything. The very act of underestimating you made the people around you careless. They stopped managing their presentation around you because they had already decided you were not a threat. They revealed their actual selves, the version underneath the curated image, directly in front of you, because they genuinely believed you were not processing what you were seeing. You were processing all of it. You accepted what was handed to you graciously and in silence, and by the time it became relevant, you understood the people around you more accurately than they understood themselves. But what is even more important than what you collected is what you chose not to do with it. You did not rush to expose anyone. You did not confront, announce, or make a scene. You held what you knew with patience and precision, because you understood something that most people never learn. Intelligence deployed before the right moment is intelligence wasted. A card played too early loses its power entirely. You held the card, you waited for the right moment, and that patience, that discipline of holding something powerful without rushing to use it, is not a passive quality. It is one of the sharpest expressions of intelligence that exists. If you felt the truth in these words, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can see it. To understand where you are, you need to understand what tried to stop you first. At some point a formal system entered the picture. The credentialed, institutionally validated kind, the one that exists to sort minds into categories, useful and less useful, sharp and less sharp, worth investing in and not, the kind that runs people through standardized measures and issues a verdict. That system looked at you and came back with the wrong answer. You did not fit cleanly into what it was built to reward. You were not the person who memorized and reproduced with elegant efficiency. You were not the one who followed every script without deviation and asked only the questions the framework was designed to answer. You were the one who looked at the framework itself and asked who built this, and why, and what it is actually optimized for. That question, inconvenient, structural, and deeply unsettling to any system that depends on compliance, was not in the answer key. So the system gave you a mark that did not reflect your actual capability. The people who trusted the system took that mark as evidence. They pointed to the output of an instrument that was never calibrated for your kind of mind and used it as proof that your mind was the problem. The system was not built to develop thinkers. It was built to produce reliable operators, people who could function predictably inside existing structures, follow established procedures, and generate consistent outputs. That serves a real purpose, but it describes an entirely different kind of intelligence from the kind you carry. Your intelligence interrogates the structure. It asks whether the established procedure is actually producing the best result. It generates original insight rather than predictable output. Your kind of mind is not most useful inside a system. It is most useful when building better ones. The system had no grade for you because it cannot evaluate what it was not designed to recognize. It could measure speed of recall, accuracy of reproduction, and consistency within defined rules. These are real skills, but they represent a narrow slice of what human intelligence actually is, specifically the slice that is easiest to quantify. Your mind does not live in the measurable slice. It lives in the connections between things, in the implications, in the questions the data provokes, in the understanding that assembles itself not through memorization, but through genuine comprehension. The instrument was wrong. You were not behind. You were simply being measured by something that was never built to see you. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet. Videos removed. Voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. And when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the dark elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine trial today, risk-free, and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Every powerful arc has a turning point, a moment where accumulated weight crosses a threshold, where observation becomes decision, and where the quiet one determines that the observation period is complete. Your turning point came. Something in you settled, not in the defeated sense, in the decided sense. And the difference between those two things is the difference between giving up and waking up. Defeat says, I cannot win this, so I will stop trying. Decision says, I have seen enough. I understand exactly what is happening here. I know who these people are. I can see how this is structured, and I know where my actual advantages are. I am finished performing confusion for the comfort of people who need me to be confused. From that moment, everything moved in a direction no one around you had anticipated. What they could never foresee is what happens to perception under sustained pressure. When you are consistently underestimated, and you refuse to collapse or perform the role being assigned to you, when you stay present, stay honest, and stay committed to seeing accurately, something remarkable develops inside you. Your attention sharpens to a point that feels almost uncomfortable in its precision, not only about the people around you, about everything. You start seeing through things that once had the power to confuse you. Performances that once looked genuine begin showing their seams. Systems that once seemed fair begin revealing their architecture. Narratives that once seemed complete begin exposing what they deliberately left out. Not because you became cynical, because you became accurate. And accuracy, once it develops to that level, does not switch off. Here is what they never accounted for. Every move against you was sharpening the exact capability they were trying to suppress. Every challenge expanded your ability to navigate complexity. Every trap refined your ability to recognize traps. Every attempt to exhaust you with their games deepened your understanding of how those games are constructed from the inside. They were building the instrument of their own exposure, without knowing it, without any awareness that the pressure they applied to hold you down was the same pressure that forges precision. You were being forged. And what comes out of a forge is not soft. Here is what was actually developing in you, while the world was busy misreading you. Your intelligence was not accumulating along the standard lines. It was not about faster recall, or more impressive vocabulary, or quicker performance under standard conditions. It was developing along a completely different axis, the axis of perception. You were becoming someone who could genuinely see, not in the ordinary sense, in the sense that looks at any interaction and immediately grasps the architecture underneath it, what each person in the dynamic actually wants, what they fear, what they are protecting, what they are performing, and what the real current is beneath the surface that everyone else is pretending to navigate. Most people move through the world by responding to the presented version of things. They take what is handed to them at face value, run it through their assumptions, and react to the presentation. That approach makes a person permanently available to be managed by anyone willing to control what gets presented to them. That approach does not work on you. You do not respond to presentations. You respond to the reality underneath them, and the reality underneath is almost never the same as what was presented. This is why people who were running manipulation in your environment would sometimes falter specifically around you, becoming oddly defensive, over-explaining, abandoning the confident performance they maintained with everyone else. They could sense it. They could feel the specific discomfort of being seen accurately rather than as the version they were projecting. For someone whose entire approach depends on controlling perception, that sensation is deeply disorienting. Your mind also moves through time differently from most. You do not just see what is directly in front of you, you track trajectory. You are always asking where this is heading, not just where it is right now. Because you have observed enough patterns, lived through enough cycles, and watched enough situations unfold from beginning to end, your mind places a new situation almost instantly into a familiar category and begins projecting the arc forward. This is why your assessments tend to be accurate before anyone else has enough information to form one. It is not fortune-telling. It is the accumulated intelligence of a mind that has been paying fierce, honest, comprehensive attention to how reality actually moves under real conditions without the distortion of wishful thinking. And then there is the third dimension, the precision of your questions. You know which question to ask, not the obvious one that circles the surface, the one that identifies the exact structural flaw in whatever is being presented and exposes it with minimal force. When the foundation of something is wrong, the conclusion does not need to be argued, it collapses on its own weight. You have always known how to find the foundation. One question from you, timed precisely and aimed accurately, can accomplish what hours of argument cannot. It does not attack. It illuminates, and what gets illuminated cannot be put back into the dark by anyone who witnessed it. This is not a skill you acquired from any curriculum. It is the natural expression of a mind that has always cared more about what is actually true than about what is comfortable. That relentless pull toward actual truth is what gives your questions their weight. The underestimation you experienced was not random. Much of it was not careless. A significant portion of it was driven by something very specific, operating underneath the surface, and your particular kind of intelligence is exactly what lets you see it for what it was. The driving force was not fear of you personally, it was fear of what you represent. A mind calibrated to see clearly, simply by operating at full capacity, makes the limitations of less honest minds visible. You do not have to announce anything. You do not have to issue challenges or make comparisons. The mere fact of your perception creates an involuntary mirror, and what people see in that mirror, in contrast to your clarity, is the gap between who they present themselves as and what they actually are. Your depth makes surface-level processing obvious. Your calm makes performance apparent. Your accuracy makes confusion visible. And people who have organized their identity around being the perceptive one, the sharp one, the one who has everything calibrated, those people cannot sit comfortably with what that mirror shows them. So they did what people do when something threatens the identity they depend on. They reframed the threat as a deficiency. They looked at the mirror and declared the mirror broken. They dismissed your intelligence not because they genuinely believed you were limited, but because acknowledging what you actually carry would have cost them a self-concept they were not prepared to surrender. This understanding should permanently change how you receive every memory of being dismissed. Because those dismissals were not responding to a lack in you, they were responding to a perceived threat from you. One is a statement about your worth, the other is a statement about their fear, and only one of those was ever your responsibility to carry. Here is the second layer, because there is always a second layer with you. The people most unsettled by your intelligence were not always the ones who confronted you directly. Open opposition is at least honest. The ones who caused the most subtle damage were the ones who smiled warmly while steering you away from your actual strengths. They offered encouragement that was specifically designed to direct your investment away from the capabilities that made them uncomfortable. They praised the parts of you that posed no challenge, so you would develop those parts and leave the more powerful ones underdeveloped. Your mind logged this too. It cross-referenced the pattern across time and arrived quietly and without announcement at an accurate assessment of what was actually happening. That assessment did not make you bitter, it made you precise. Precision and bitterness are entirely different responses to the same information. Bitterness closes a person down. Precision opens them up. Your mind has always moved toward opening, even when everything around it was trying to close. The most significant education you have ever received did not happen in any institution. It happened in the hardest seasons, in the most difficult dynamics, in the experiences you would not choose to repeat, but that you cannot honestly say you wish had never happened, because of what they permanently deposited in you. Every betrayal gave you a master class in the mechanics of trust, how it is constructed, how it fractures, and what the earliest signs of its absence feel like before anything has been said out loud. That knowledge does not live in any textbook, it lives in the body. It lives in the specific sensation of knowing, before any visible evidence appears, that something in a dynamic is not what it is presenting itself to be. Every time a plan fell apart, you learned something irreplaceable about real-time adaptability, the capacity to stay clear and functional when reality diverges sharply from what you expected. That form of intelligence can only be built under actual pressure. No amount of theoretical preparation produces it. You developed it because circumstances required it of you, and now you carry it permanently. Every person who attempted manipulation in your life contributed to your understanding of how manipulation actually works, not just the tactics, but the underlying logic, what it preys on, how it sustains itself, and where its pressure points are. Understanding that architecture from the inside makes you functionally resistant to the most common forms of it. All of this lives in you, built by experience, verified by reality, permanently yours. It operates below conscious thought. It is why your assessments of people tend to be accurate before you have had time to reason through them consciously. It is why you sense the direction a situation is heading before the destination becomes visible. It is why your first instinct, even when the available evidence seems to point the other way, so often turns out to be correct. Your intelligence is not theoretical. It is lived and tested under real conditions. That is the most reliable kind there is. And here is what that entire process revealed about you specifically. Your thinking does not collapse under pressure. It clarifies. When a situation is at its most complex and most uncertain, you become calmer, more focused, and more precise, not less. Not because you are disconnected from what is happening, you feel it fully, but your intelligence does not abandon you when the stakes are highest. It sharpens in the heat. It focuses when everything around it is chaotic. That is a quality that cannot be performed, borrowed, or faked. You either developed it through genuine difficulty, or you did not. You did. Every hard experience confirmed it. Every moment that could have broken your clarity instead refined it. And the people who underestimated you will never have access to that quality because they never stayed present through enough genuine difficulty to build it. This is where everything that has been building finally converges. You have been collecting, refining, and developing in the quiet that got mislabeled as absence, a level of intelligence and understanding that was never going to stay invisible forever. Genuine capability does not disappear under pressure. It accumulates, and accumulated capability, at a certain point, becomes impossible to ignore. The receipt starts printing. Maybe it is a single sentence you deliver in the middle of a conversation, precise, layered, and positioned exactly right, and everyone present goes still. You can feel the recalibration happening in real time. The people who had you categorized as insufficient suddenly have no framework for what they just heard. Maybe it is a call you made on a situation or a person that turns out to be exactly right in a way nobody else saw coming. Not because you were lucky, because you had been tracking the pattern and you could read where it was heading. Now the outcome is visible. It matches what you knew, and no one in the vicinity has a clean explanation for how you knew it before the evidence was there. Maybe it is the question, the one that lands in the middle of a carefully managed narrative, the one that does not accuse, does not raise its voice, does not even seem aggressive. It simply places a light directly on the one spot where the structure does not hold, and the structure falls, quietly, completely, in full view of everyone present. In every one of these moments, what happens is larger than the moment itself. The people around you are forced to reckon with the cost of their assumption, not just the specific error of misjudging you. That is uncomfortable but survivable. The deeper realization is that their entire framework for measuring intelligence failed publicly. They were confident, they were vocal about that confidence, and now the verdict they issued is sitting in ruins with nothing to prop it up. You do not have to say anything in that moment. You do not have to perform satisfaction or signal awareness of what just happened. Your presence is the argument. Your capability is the evidence. Your precision is the receipt that has been printing item by item since the moment they decided they had you figured out. And the most complete irony of all, every move made to keep you small contributed directly to this moment. Every dismissal sharpened your observation. Every manipulation deepened your understanding of how deception is constructed. Every hard experience deposited clarity into you that no smooth, uncontested path could have built. The opposition did not delay your development. It accelerated it. In trying to contain you, they built the exact instrument that made their own exposure unavoidable. There is one dimension of your intelligence that deserves its own recognition, because it may be the most practically powerful of everything you carry. You do not just read individual situations. You read patterns across situations, across time, and across different people expressing the same underlying dynamic in completely different forms. This is the intelligence of the strategist, not the tactician who responds brilliantly to what is directly in front of them, though you are capable of that too, but the strategist who sees from elevation, identifies the recurring pattern, and positions before the situation has fully developed. You have encountered the same fundamental human dynamics enough times, dressed in different clothes and wearing different faces, that you recognize them almost instantly on contact. The person performing confidence to cover a fracturing self-image, the person disguising fear as critique directed at you, the offer structured to appear like generosity but designed to create a debt, the opportunity that is actually a trap, dressed in opportunity's clothing. You see these things early enough to choose your response rather than simply react, early enough to position yourself before the dynamic locks in, early enough to decide whether engagement is worth your energy at all, because sometimes the most powerful move is the deliberate choice not to engage with something that was only ever designed to consume you. This is the distinction between someone who is sharp and someone who is formidable. Sharp responds well to what is in front of them. Formidable has already accounted for what is coming. You are formidable, and you were built toward it through the exact conditions that were necessary to produce it. The difficulty was never a detour from your development. The difficulty was your development. Every hard thing was a training ground for pattern recognition. Every dismissal was a live demonstration of how shallow thinking defends itself. Every trap was a lesson in trap architecture, so that you would never need to fall into that particular design again. You did not just survive the opposition, you graduated from it. And graduating from something that tried to hold you back does not produce bitterness. It produces knowledge, deep, structural, permanently integrated knowledge about how the world operates, where the hidden levers are, which loud positions are actually desperate, and which quiet positions hold more real leverage than anything performing power in the vicinity. That knowledge is yours permanently, and it gives you a navigational advantage in every environment you enter for the rest of your life. This is not a message about what was done to you. This is a message about what you now get to do. The people who underestimated you did not wound you permanently. They did not take anything from you that was not ultimately replaced with something stronger. Everything they tried to suppress came back with more force. Every closed door redirected you somewhere that opened more completely. Every dismissal that stung also sharpened something in you that is now one of your greatest assets. You are here right now with more genuine capability than any of them predicted for you. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. And the only move that makes sense from here is forward, fully forward. with no looking back except to extract understanding, and no understanding that does not serve what you are building. You stop shrinking, permanently, not as a performance of newfound confidence, not as a reaction to what was done, as the natural, stable expression of what you have always actually been. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not equipped to understand you. Your intelligence is not a subject that requires their approval to be real. Your perception does not need their endorsement to function. Your capability was never waiting on their recognition to activate. It was operating with or without it the entire time. You walk into every environment from this point forward as the person who carries the depth of that space, whether the space has caught on yet or not, because environments catch up, they always do. The person who moves with the quiet, unperformative authority of someone who knows exactly what they carry, that person shifts the energy of any space they enter, not through volume, not through aggression, through the undeniable weight of a mind that is fully operational and completely unapologetic about it. The silence that once confused people becomes your signature. You are not quiet because you have nothing to say. You are quiet because you are selecting the exact moment when what you say will land with maximum precision. That is not restraint for its own sake. That is mastery of timing, one of the highest expressions of the intelligence you carry. And when you do speak, you speak with the full accumulated weight of everything you observed, processed and understood during the quiet. Not the impressive-sounding answer, the accurate one, the one that reorganizes the entire conversation, the one that people are still sitting with long after the exchange ended. That is not performing intelligence, that is deploying it, and you have always known the difference between those two things, even when the world around you was only rewarding the performance. Here is something that will permanently change how you receive future underestimation, because it will still happen. There will still be people who misread you on contact. There will be environments that do not immediately register your level. There will be situations where your intelligence is not legible to the people around you. What changes is not whether it happens. What changes is what it means to you. You now understand exactly what it means when someone cannot see your level of intelligence. It does not mean you lack it. It means they lack the calibration to detect it. These are completely different problems, and only one of them belongs to you. Think about what that actually requires of you going forward. It requires nothing, no defense, no explanation, no performance designed to make your intelligence more legible to an instrument that was never built for it. Your capability does not become more real because someone finally acknowledges it. It was always real. Their acknowledgement is their update, not your validation. You carry this understanding not as arrogance. Arrogance is an overcorrection, a performance in the opposite direction, and you have never needed to perform anything. You carry it as accuracy. The same clear-eyed accuracy that has always been your defining characteristic, applied now not only outward to the world, but inward to your own understanding of what you are and what you carry. You are not waiting for confirmation from outside. You already have it. From every moment your perception proved accurate, every assessment that held up under real conditions, every question that dissolved a carefully maintained lie, every time your quiet understanding of a dynamic turned out to be more reliable than the loudest reaction in the vicinity. The confirmation is already in you. It has been building with every experience. It is real. You are not imagining it. Trust it fully and move from it completely. The silence they labeled as your limitation was the sound of your preparation. Every quiet moment was loading. Every observation was filing. Every hard experience was depositing something irreplaceable into you. Every dismissal was sharpening an edge that is now impossible to ignore. Every environment that underestimated you was without any awareness of what it was doing, contributing to the construction of something it would eventually have no choice but to acknowledge. The measuring instruments they used were never calibrated for your kind of mind. Of course the readings came back wrong. Of course the output of a system built to reward speed and compliance did not capture what you were carrying. A thermometer cannot measure altitude. A scale cannot measure light. The instrument was wrong from the beginning. The problem was never the mind being measured, and now the instrument is irrelevant, because what was always inside you, never absent, never successfully suppressed, never diminished by the weight of their consensus, is fully visible, fully operational, fully yours. You were chosen, not because the universe arbitrarily favored you. You were chosen because you chose repeatedly, under pressure, in the hardest seasons, when giving up was the easier path to stay honest about what you were seeing, and to keep building the kind of mind that could see it clearly. You made that choice again and again. That is why you have what you have. You were never the slow one. You were the one who was loading, and chosen one. The load is complete. Now move, fully, without apology, without explanation, without one more moment of waiting for the world to tell you it is time. It was always time, and the world is about to find out exactly what it missed.